All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're diving deep into one of the world's most tense and complicated military relationships, the strategic standoff between India and Pakistan. And this isn't about just counting tanks and planes. It's a fascinating and, frankly, dangerous game of asymmetry.
You know, this one sentence right here, it perfectly captures the entire situation. On one side, you've got the sheer weight and size of India's conventional military. But holding all of that in check is Pakistan's ultimate trump card, its nuclear arsenal. This dynamic is the key to understanding everything else we're about to talk about. So here's our roadmap. We'll start with a big picture of this asymmetric standoff. Then we'll crunch the numbers. After that, we'll get into the absolute game changer, the nuclear factor. From there, we'll look at the fight for the skies and the battle at sea, before tying it all together to see what this fragile balance really means.
Okay, so let's start with this core idea, the asymmetric standoff. This is not a classic matchup of two equal heavyweights. No, this is a much more complex and, you could say, unstable balance between two very different kinds of power. So if you're Pakistan, you know you can't match India dollar for dollar or soldier for soldier. It's just not possible. So what do? Well, your strategy has to evolve. It now rests on two main pillars designed to stop a much larger neighbor in its tracks. The first, and the most powerful one, is the nuclear deterrent. And the second is a really well-trained modern air force that's built to challenge India's control of the skies and make any conflict incredibly costly. To put this into perspective, for decades, both sides were locked in a more traditional arms race. But over time, Pakistan shifted its strategy toward this asymmetric model. And this isn't just some theory. The source material we're looking at uses a fictional but very plausible flare-up in May 2025 to show how this works. It demonstrated that even with all of India's advantages, Pakistan's strategy creates a very real, very dangerous stalemate. All right, let's dig into the hard data, because when you look at the raw numbers, you really start to see the story of this disparity and where each side has chosen to focus its energy. Just look at that. The difference in spending is massive. We're talking about an 8-to-1 ratio. That huge bar for India, that's the money that funds its massive modernization programs, buys cutting-edge technology from all over the world, and supports a giant domestic defense industry. It's a huge advantage.
And this table really paints the picture. On almost every conventional metric, global rank, active soldiers, planes, tanks, India has a clear lead. But then, your eyes get drawn to that last line. Nuclear warheads. Look how close that is. It's almost 1-to-1. That right there is the number that changes the entire game. It's the ultimate equalizer.
But it's not all one-sided. Pakistan has been smart, investing in specific areas to create its own advantages. Take self-propelled artillery, for example. These are basically big guns on tracks. Pakistan has over 6 times more of them. That means their artillery can move faster, shoot, and then get out of the way before the enemy can fire back. It's a huge tactical advantage on the ground.
And that brings us to the most important piece of this puzzle, the nuclear equalizer. This is the domain where all that conventional advantage we just saw gets, for all intents and purposes, canceled out. This is where the two nations are forced to look at each other as equals. And what's really crucial to understand is that they have completely different philosophies on how to use these weapons. India has a no-first-use policy. Their stance is, we will never start a nuclear war, but if you hit us first, we guarantee we can withstand that attack and hit you back so hard that it won't be worth it. Pakistan, on the other hand, has a first-use policy. This is the core of their entire strategy. They're essentially saying, if your conventional army rolls across our border and threatens to overwhelm us, we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons to stop you.
To make good on its promise of a devastating second strike, India has built a full nuclear triad. That just means they can launch nukes from land, air, and sea, so you can't take them all out at once. They've got land-based missiles that can travel thousands of kilometers, nuclear submarines that can hide silent and deep in the ocean for months, and of course, advanced jets that can deliver these weapons. Pakistan also has its own triad to make sure its deterrent is believable. They have a whole family of missiles, including some like the Ababil, which carry multiple warheads. The whole point of that is to overwhelm any missile defense system you throw at it. They also have submarine launch cruise missiles, and of course, their workhorse fighter jets like the F-16. Okay, let's turn our attention to the skies, because in any potential conflict today, the air war is where the most advanced technology comes into play. And the best way to understand this dynamic is with a pretty simple metaphor. Think of it like this. India has spent a fortune building an incredibly powerful defensive shield to protect its airspace. In response, Pakistan has focused all its efforts on sharpening its offensive sword, its missiles and fighter jets, to find a way to break through that shield. Now, the heart of India's shield is the Russian S-400 system, and this thing is an absolute game changer. With a range of 400 kilometers, it can reach out and touch enemy aircraft deep inside their own airspace. It creates this massive keep-out bubble. Pakistan has a very respectable Chinese system, the HQ-9, but it's just not in the same league when it comes to range or how many targets it can track and engage at once. But when you look at the sword, the offensive side, the fight gets a lot closer. India has the edge in numbers with fantastic jets like the French Rafale and Russian Su-30. But the Pakistan Air Force has a reputation for being incredibly well-trained and professional, and their top fighters, the American F-16s and new jets from China, like the J-10CE, make them a very dangerous opponent for anyone.
All right, let's head out to sea. Because if you want to see where the asymmetry between India and Pakistan is the most obvious, the most stark, it's on the water. And it all comes down to what they're trying to achieve. India has built what we call a blue water navy. Its job is to dominate the entire Indian Ocean, to project power thousands of miles away. Pakistan knows it can't compete with that, so they've built what a green water navy. Their goal is much simpler: sea denial. They just want to make it so painful and expensive for the Indian Navy to operate near their coastline that they won't even try.
And nothing says blue water navy and power projection like this number. 2. India operates 2 full-sized aircraft carriers. That is something only a handful of countries in the entire world can do. It's like having a mobile airbase you can park anywhere in the ocean. And what about Pakistan? The number is 0, a big, round 0. They have absolutely no answer to an Indian carrier group. Instead, their strategy relies on being sneaky, using their very quiet submarines and anti-ship missiles to pose a threat and try to keep that much larger Indian fleet at bay. So, we've looked at the ground forces, the navies, the air forces, and the all-important nuclear weapons. Let's pull all these pieces together and answer the final question. What does it all mean? What's the bottom line here? Well, it boils down to this simple 4-step logic. Step 1. India has overwhelming conventional power. Step 2. Pakistan's nuclear arsenal basically says your conventional power doesn't matter past a certain point. Step 3. In the air, you get a stalemate between an incredible defense and a potent offense. And what's the result of all that? You get a balance, an equilibrium. But it is incredibly tense, incredibly fragile, and always, always dangerous. And that really leads us to the final unsettling thought. In a situation this complicated, with 2 nuclear-armed rivals locked in this delicate dance, you have to ask yourself, is this balance truly stable? Is it a form of peace held in place by mutual fear? Or is it just a countdown, waiting for one side to make a single mistake or miscalculation? That's the question that looms over the entire region. Thanks for tuning in.